In today's episode, Chuck and I welcome a very special guest to our show, Dr. Erica Bowling. She is the owner and founder of Northeast Canine Conditioning and Northeast Canine Conditioning Academy, as well as ECB Aspire Incorporated. So stick with us, we are coming right up. You have instructional design questions. We discuss answers. Dr. Erica Bowling is a former Associate Professor of Education at Rutgers University and owner and founder of Northeast Canine Conditioning, Northeast Canine Conditioning Academy, and ECB Aspire Incorporated. Erica helps sport and working dog handlers create peak performing canine athletes so that they can excel at home, on the trial field, or at work while minimizing the risk of injury. Through her online coaching and business programs, Erica also helps dog trainers and business owners stand out within their industry and succeed financially by teaching them how to create and sell face-to-face and online innovative, cutting-edge programs. Welcome, Erica. Really glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be talking about this topic today.
Well, Erica, I'm so happy you're here. And we have a long journey to talk about when it comes to what you've done with instructional design and where you started, where you ended up. And I think people are going to find it fascinating because when they talk about instructional design, they don't understand the thousands of things that this involves that doesn't have anything to do necessarily with what they think it does. Yeah. And I think your journey best amplifies exactly all these things. So starting at UMBC in a graduate program, going to Michigan for a PhD, and then ending up at Rutgers on faculty. And, you think, wow, that's quite an extinguished career, right? But then all this time you're doing something else. You're doing all this cool stuff and it has nothing to do with what people would traditionally think of instructional design. So tell us how this all evolved, and also your short stop in Korea too. I mean, gosh. Yeah. You've done a lot of stuff. So how did you get from A to F?
Following my passions, I would say. That's what did it. I remember when I was looking at trying to decide where to go for my master's, and I was looking at things like bilingual education and literacy. And I remember reading the description of the courses for the ISD program at UMBC, and I just got so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is me, this is what I want to do. And I would say the majority of the things I did, it was just following that excitement and that passion. And when that passion wasn't there, I would kind of reinvent and look for other ways, and what direction do I take to bring that passion back. And so Korea was a little bit different because I had
it was yes,
because I had already been overseas. I did my undergraduate and then I did student teaching overseas, and I was ready to just stay in the United States. But then I had this amazing opportunity to help develop a brand new program in South Korea at a university. And so that was partly a career move, and to be a part of that and to really advance in what I was wanting to do. I really was ready to kind of have a home, but I knew it would be a great experience because of where it would put me to be able to be involved in creating this brand new program, the first TESOL program, teaching English to speakers of other languages in all of South Korea. And so I was like, all right, I'm on board. And so after that, I was like, I want to be able to help people at the university and work with teachers, and I needed a PhD basically to do what I wanted to do. And then it just went from there. I followed into the university in education. My background was doing a lot in literacy and technology, but I had my passion and my side hobby with working with my dogs. And my mom for years said, Erica, it would be really nice if you could find a way to bring your passion for the dogs and bring it to the university. And I was like, Mom, you're crazy. How?
But Mom was right as usual.
She was right. And it took me years to figure it out. But basically my dog got injured and I got involved in canine fitness to keep my dog healthy. And people were saying they would see me warming him up and stretching him and preparing him for competition and massaging him. And they were like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Can you show me? And I'm an educator at heart. I'm a teacher at heart. And so I was like, sure, I'll teach you. And then they said, do you do seminars? And I was like, yeah, I'll do seminars. And I was basically just paying for gas money to compete and train my own dog. And what happened was somebody said, darn, I can't make it to your seminar. I really wish I could go. And it was like 5 hours from my house. I said, how about I throw some videos together? And my background in education and online teaching and learning was super easy. I was like, how about I do a video a week for a month? I charged like $97. And that was like the beginning of an online canine fitness course that ultimately became an online academy, that became an online certification program, that grew into a full-blown business that I started saying, you know, let's what would happen if I, instead of doing this as a hobby, what if I actually got serious about it? Yeah. And I never really thought that I could actually leave the university and have the lifestyle I have and make more money. I never dreamed that that was possible. And what triggered it was I met somebody who does business coaching. And I thought, you know, if I'm going to try to do this and really do this for real and make it a business, I need help. I don't have a business background. And the deciding factor was driving in New Jersey down the Garden State Parkway to my home. I got a phone call from my dermatologist, and I've had bouts of skin cancer. And I remember very clearly as I was driving home and I had another skin cancer, and I was like, you know, I don't want to live my life of regret and say, what if? You know, what if I had tried to do this seriously? What if I had tried to grow my business? What if I tried to follow my passion? What if I didn't try to follow my passion? And that's where I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to invest in this high level coaching program. I'm going to put everything I can to learn as much as I can about the business side of things. And a few years later, that was actually holding me back. I was making more money, and it was actually holding me back from career-wise and what I wanted to do, and even income-wise. And about this summer, it'll be 2 years that I made the official, I basically I retired early from the university, left a tenured associate professor position, which people would be like, are you crazy? Some thought I was crazy, and some were like super envious. They're like, wow, I wish I had the courage to walk away. But it was just following my passion. I mean, I loved what I was doing at the university, but over time, my creative juices, there were things, the programs I wanted to create, and I got involved in the entrepreneurial side and the business and designing, helping different types of people that went beyond my role at the university. And when I told them what I wanted to do, they're like, well, the business school does that. You can't do that. Or so-and-so does that. Or, you know, we need you to teach literacy. And I was like, well, you know, I've got, you know, I have this interest. I want to do these other things. And I know that there's people that, you know, are interested in what I'm doing. And so it wasn't an easy decision, but it was, like I said, just following my passions is what it was.
Erica, I love something that you said just a few moments ago, that question of what if, right? That question is such a powerful one. What if I don't do this? What if I do this? And a lot of times those moments in life when we are called to reflect on what we've done so far and where we're going, those are the moments that really, those are turning points. And it's sounded like that was the turning point for you, is asking yourself that question, well, what if?
Yeah, there were two key moments that stand out really clearly in my mind. One was driving down the highway, getting that phone call and saying, you know what, I'm going to invest in this mastermind program. And it was a really expensive, you know, it was like a master's degree. And I looked at it, I said, I may fail, but it's investing in my education like a master's degree. And I said, maybe this particular business won't, you know, I might not succeed, but I'm going to gain knowledge that will be with me for a lifetime. So I really looked at it as investing in it as like another master's degree. And that was a defining moment. And then there was another defining moment of to leave the university or not, because I struggled for a few years. It was really, really scary. You know, leaving the security of, you know, having that steady income, health insurance and all of that. And there was a defining moment where I went to a retreat with this mastermind program. I did a retreat in California. And I think it was one of the first days, my mentor and coach, Jane Duber, had us do a journaling activity. And she said, imagine your life like 5 years from now? Imagine, place yourself, close your eyes and imagine the life that you like, that you want and that you can see and envision for yourself. And I started journaling and I just broke down crying. I just started bawling, and I had to leave to go to the bathroom, and, and that was where I realized leaving the university was not an option. It was like, I have to do it. That was a defining moment where I was like, it's not a choice of do I leave or do I not. Like, for me to do and be who and what I need to be as a person and what I want out of my life, that very moment, I realized that it's not a question anymore. I have to leave and follow this pole that I have. And those were very distinct moments that stand out to me.
And I remember those times. How many late night conversations did we have about all this? And it brings me back to the point of it is, once we think about the world a little differently, and bringing it back to instructional design, when we think about everything around us as a system, we start to look at the world differently. And what you've done, from my perspective, is you've taken your life and you pulled out the parts of it that are your system, and you said, I want to change these parts of it. And this is how this relates to that. And this is how I'm going to make this better. And it's okay if I leave this particular part of it out, or I move on from this part, because I have other things that support and build that for me. Yeah. And this is one trait that I see in my students and students like you that have gone on to do tremendous things after grad school, is that they think differently. And everything I hear you saying is not what you would hear a traditionalist say. This is not traditional thinking.
It's not. Like, I designed my life, like
the you life
did. That's a powerful line. Design your life.
Yeah, I like it. Can we use that? we're gonna take that and steal it.
Yeah, it's I had a vision and I worked. It took me years, but where I'm living right now, the house I built, the lifestyle I have right now, I had a clear vision, and over the years I had to design my life to make this happen. It was a journey, definitely. But there were very distinct moves and decisions that were not easy. But it was like, you have that vision. What's that end goal? What am I working towards? And you're cycling through what's working. This isn't working. Let's change it. This is working. Let's revise it. And then also it would change. One time I thought I would be living in North Carolina. And then, I went back to my original, no, I'm going to Maine. And it was like, I think of the ISD process, right? Is that you go through that, iterations. And that's exactly
the thing. But I mean, it just amazes me. And, we talk about this, we're friends, but this whole notion of the fact that you have completely changed in what you wanted to accomplish from the very beginning, many years ago, we're just, all of us as grad students, we go through and we try to figure out what the next step is. And for me, it completely changed my life too, because I started looking at everything differently. And okay, this part's not fitting. I don't know why it doesn't fit. I don't know what the new piece is, but I know that this is not where I want to be in 10 years. And we always talk about 5-year plans and 10-year plans, but it is about designing your life. It is about making conscious choices about decisions that you need to make. And watching you go through this, I was just always amazed. You would have lists, okay? You would have the pluses and minuses, and you, right? And we would talk about these things like, and sometimes you'd have to talk yourself into it, but it was always an informed discussion. It was not emotional. It was always, okay, here's the facts. This is what I got to deal with. How do I go from here?
So I'm on my early journey into the whole ISD world. I'm a new graduate student. I think it's my second semester in, and so I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really digging into the whole designing your life thing and the ISD process. And so one of my first questions to you, if we could segue into these questions that we have sort of drafted to talk a little bit more about ISD and really focus this conversation in on that, is when you think about your favorite part of ISD, what would you say is your favorite ISD project and why?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say the one that really stands out that I would say I'm one of the most proud is one of the first big projects I did was at the university at Rutgers. Is I saw a huge need in educating teachers and other people in using educational technology. This was way before COVID. This was I was like trying to really push this, and I got a lot of resistance, but I was like, there's this huge need to help people and how we can use technology to enhance education. And I did a proposal and got funding through Johnson & Johnson with a grant to create an online graduate program, an educational technology, so a graduate certificate in educational technology at Rutgers. And it's a university-wide recognized program. And I think I might have even still been like an assistant professor when I started working on that. So it was,
I think you were, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like right at the beginning of my career at the university, but
Right.
it was, to me, it was really something that like I had a team of doctoral students helping me and some undergrads. And basically, I mean, it was a program I had a vision for. And it was 3 graduate level courses. We kind of, designed what are the end goals, who's the audience, what do we want to achieve. And I talked with you, Chuck, remember? I got on
Many
the phone
times.
talking about it and kind of envisioning what this program would look like. And we did it. And like I said, it was, I was in the Graduate School of Education, but it was proposed at a university level approval. And so that was, and then we had instructors, that would teach for us because there were 3 different classes. And we also had people, not just educators, but anybody who wants to educate whatever their field is. So it was really interesting because we had K through 12 teachers, but we had people from all different engineering. We had engineering, and we had a professor of engineering in the program. So it was something that I'm just, it was one of the first like really big projects where like, I see that solid outcome, that product, that it was something that it was all my vision that I had, that I approached the university and said, I have this idea. And it's still there today, so it's kind of like my legacy that I left with the university. So that's something I just have a lot of pride in what I was able to do. And it was one of the first like really, kind of big projects at that level that was just purely based on kind of a vision that I had. It was all mine.
And it was a great program. And I remember there was some resistance, and designers that are watching this should realize that you're always going to have resistance. I don't know of any program that I've ever been involved in. I didn't have somebody who didn't like it or didn't want to be involved in it, especially in academia. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot else going on besides, maybe what should always be going on. But designers should take from this, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that you can't let this little bit of negativity or interference or lack of attention to what you want to do play any real role in trying to get to your goals.
Definitely. Most definitely. And yeah, it was interesting because it wasn't purely K through 12 education. And it was very challenging because a lot of the stuff in there, like the typical K through 12 educator or professor, didn't necessarily have the background. And they're like, okay, how do I teach this about technology in education to an engineer? But we did end up getting some graduate students who I mentored through the program, and I taught, and they got their doctorate. And then they kind of helped, they became instructors in the program after, even when I left, they were some of the ones that kind of stepped up. And so they were also a part of the design of the program. So it was more than, I really wanted them to embrace the kind of the philosophy of what that program was all about. And I knew that if they were a part of, that co-creating those courses and they were in it from the ground up, they understood, the essence of what was in that program. So that was kind of how we were able to tackle it, but it was definitely challenging because there were, other things I would propose and they're like, well, this is the School of Education. Like we don't, this is not really our thing, but I'm like, but we are educating. And then we definitely had people that were really excited and really on board. So it definitely, I got more support than anything, but there were, definitely times where people are like, it was hard for them to wrap their head around it because it did expand beyond the K through 12 typical context.
When there's resistance, when you're applying something new into the world, when you're trying to impact the world through endeavors such as ISD, such as the courses you created, the curriculum, there are going to be lessons learned along the way. Could you talk a little bit about what things you did learn the hard way? Because I think there are going to be people listening in on this who have those doubts in their mind.
Yeah, things I learned the hard way. There's a couple things to share. One is when I turned in my canine fitness program, my mentor and friend, she actually recommended possibly turning it into a certification program. And at the time that seemed too overwhelming for me because I was like, canine fitness and certification, like, I was like, what do you mean certification? Like, who certifies? And she's like, well, you, it's like your program and your business. And it's kind of like giving your stamp of approval. And I really had trouble kind of conceptualizing that because I just didn't, I was still kind of stepping into accepting, Erica as an expert, a go-to person in canine fitness. Because remember, I was just doing it for fun at first, just for my own dogs. And so what I did was I created a canine fitness program and I did not have certification. And I thought I was going to be doing it for competition, like sport dogs, competitors. And so I designed this program as a spinoff from my intro course. And then I marketed it. And it wasn't completely created, but I had my marketing, I had my outline and my modules. And I ended up attracting a whole bunch of dog trainers rather than competitors. Some of them competed, but they were dog trainers who wanted to do it for their own dogs. And then they were going, hey, wow, I could do canine fitness for my business. And they came to me and they said, do you offer certification? And they actually asked me for the certification. And so, the lesson here was, is I didn't have the program fully designed. I was collecting that input and I was using the input to redesign to better fit the needs of my audience. And that process of kind of getting your data, getting your information and recycling that back in is so important because I work with so many people where I help them create designs for their programs and they come to me like business owners and they're like, I want to do this online course. And a lot of times they come to me and they have the whole thing all planned out. They just need to know how to put it online. And I'm like, wait a minute, why don't, let's not, they literally want to go in and create everything from the ground up, but they don't have an audience yet. And it's really hard for them and really scary to promote a program without having every handout, every lesson, every video like finalized. And I tell them, I say, no, listen, your program's going to be better to design it based on the feedback from these people. You have an idea of what you think they need, but you really need that input from them so you can fine tune it and tweak it. And so it's really interesting that I caught that early enough in the design of my program that the end program of what I created, the audience is totally different than what I thought I was going to create it for. Exactly. And I ended up with a certification program that I never even thought about doing it. And to be honest, the certification for marketing reasons, that's a big pull right there. Yep. And so that is something that I struggled. A lot of people, when they think that they're like, well, yeah, this is what I need to do. And also if you're in ISD, when you're consulting with somebody, the design process, they don't know the design process. And they come in and they're like, they're so clear, this is what I want to create. And this is what, I want to do. And it's a bit of kind of educating and you have to be in a very tactful way and to help them realize that, maybe what you thought you need and want might not be what you really need to do and what your audience needs. And so I kind of learned it and caught it early on that I was like, oh, I just readjusted, right? Because I'm used to that and I'm open to that. It's like, oh, all right, let's change my program. Oh yeah, let's do certification. But a lot of people that I work with and clients, taking that change of direction in the midst of things is a lot harder for them, I find. And it's very scary for them.
And how do you navigate that for them? How do you help them navigate that? I would imagine it's hard and scary.
Yeah. So when I'm working with business owners and they're like designing online programs or dog training programs, I work with, canine professionals also on the business side. One thing I do is I share them my story, and I give them real life examples of, listen, if I had just gone through and just did everything on what I thought I needed to do from the ground up without doing the research, without revisiting, without tweaking it, I would not have the program I have today, and it would not be as marketable. So I give them examples, and I mean, that totally doesn't like alleviate everything, but also I find they a big thing that I do is building up confidence in people. Is I'm educating them, but a lot of times they know what they need to do, or they have a good sense, but it's very scary, and like, can this really work? Like, if we take a different direction, or it's something I never thought of, and oh wow, like, we may have to target a whole different audience you never considered. And so there's a lot of fear and insecurities that can come with that. And so it's a lot of kind of guiding them and breaking it down into smaller steps, educating them along the way, but also a lot of also building up and supporting them on that kind of emotional, psychological, mental side. Of not to, and this is one thing that I would sometimes struggle with, is I would overwhelm them with too much too soon. So it's kind of like,
I can't imagine that, Erica.
Giving them the information, breaking it down.
You have to get them to trust you.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. And of course, they don't know ISD. Why should they? Why would they? Yeah. But they have to be okay with you knowing what you're doing, and building that confidence and building that relationship. And in some ways it's credibility, in some ways it's trust. But that's what a good designer does, is creates a space for things to happen well. And that's exactly what you've done with these examples is, okay, you're not supposed to be the expert in this. That's what I do. It's, that's why I have a PhD or a master's degree or certificate, because there are things about this that you wouldn't be expected to know. Let me do those things. Let me show you how this works. Take my hand. Let's walk through the valley of putting this together the best we can. And, those are great things. That's a great example of how you do that.
And I would imagine clients would appreciate that you are taking that off of their plate, because they're experts in what they do and not in ISD. And so you help them alleviate that from their shoulders and let them focus on what they're really good at, which is their business.
And that's I get that compliment a lot from them on how supportive I've been, and I'll guide them in like developing programs. Like I help them totally redesign their programs and remarket it and reprice it. And a lot of them, it's like, charge what you're worth, and it's so scary for them. But I'm like, you can do it. You can do it. Here's how you can do it. That's it's a low, zero risk way. And then I get the text messages. Oh my gosh, I just offered this. Oh my God, they just purchased it. Oh my God. And they still can't like really believe. They're like, I can't believe somebody paid me this. I can't believe that somebody purchased this program. But I had to give them the confidence to say, listen, this is how you do it. This is the value. This is how you can present it. You got this. And they'll kind of, or they'll listen to me. They're scared, but it's like, okay, like you said, Chuck, having trust and faith, and say, well, they don't even believe it a lot of times themselves. They're like, well, Erica told me to do this, but how in the world am I going to do this? And then they listen to me, and then they see the success, and then they're coming back. And I have like one, I think she messaged me like 3 times this week. She's like, oh my gosh, I just sold another of my largest programs. Oh my, and we revamped all her programs because she was like charging like peanuts. I'm like, oh, okay. Let's look at your programs. We got to redesign your programs. We got to repackage. We got to look at your audience. We need a different audience. And those emails and the texts, they just keep coming in, because every time she's like, I can't believe it. Oh my gosh. And then they freak out. They're like, what do I do now? What do I do now?
Erica's phone's blowing up meanwhile.
And this leads into our next question, and our last of the 3 questions before the infamous half questions, which will be coming up shortly. What is your advice for new designers? I'm a new ISD. I'm a new graduate student. I'm a new certificate student. I've been given this title. Yeah, look at Denise. Tell Denise what she needs to know.
Please, some advice.
I have advice for you. One thing that I struggled with, and what I see with them is when you come out and you're working on projects and you're working with people that aren't necessarily your areas of expertise, the content. And I think your first reaction is kind of like how I was when I started doing this, like, who am I? Who am I to be advising these people who, like, maybe people I look up to, and I'm like, oh, wow, look at this organization or this business. And, they, like, I work with dog trainers who have businesses that, I've never had that kind of, maybe at that particular business. And at first, it was kind of like, who am I? I'm like, oh my gosh, they're coming to me for advice, but like, I don't, they've got 25 years experience in this, but I don't. And I'm looking at like the content, that subject matter knowledge. And that could be very intimidating. And then you question about, what do you bring to the table? It's like, people don't want to charge that much, or they want to give them free. They're like, well, I'm just going to give them my free because I'm not an expert. So I'm going to give all my free services.
Oh my God, that is so true.
Low confidence to charge,
Right, Denise?
I've been there, done that a million times over, not necessarily with ISD, but with so many other aspects of my life. Just, let me just do this. Oh,
yeah. But the thing is, you have to remind yourself, like, but you have an area of expertise none of them have. You have strengths that's why they're coming, and even they might not even realize that that's why they're coming to you. But maybe you haven't had that particular business, and maybe you don't even have 2 years or 1 year of experience doing it, but you have a knowledge, you have a way of thinking, and you have a way of approaching problems that they don't have, or else they wouldn't be reaching out or need your help if they had everything solved. And so reminding yourself, and also sometimes when people question you and come back to you, or there's misunderstandings, is you have to stand strong and say, well, okay, that's fine, but no, this is my area of expertise, and this is what I know, and this is why I'm asking about this. This is why I'm suggesting we do this. And those insecurities can really creep in, especially when you're first getting those initial jobs and collaborations, because you're kind of like, ooh, it's your first time doing it and the first time working with that kind of client, and it can be intimidating. And so I would say for the people that are just kind of starting out, or just, graduating, or in their early years of their career, is you have to remind yourself that education and the expertise and the knowledge and what you invested the time and money and blood, sweat, and tears to learn about ISD, chances are there's a very, very high percentage chance that even if you have a real large team of people coming to you, they don't know that. They don't have that expertise. And we have to keep reminding ourselves that, and what we bring to the table is unique and powerful and needed. And we don't have to be an expert in all these other areas for them to get value and to benefit from what we bring to the table. So we have to remind ourselves that, because I think that's sometimes one of the biggest challenges, is we get in the way of ourselves. And it's that mindset. And there is a part of it, when you're working with other people or working with new clients, is, it's going to come across differently if you come across confident in what you know, versus if you have an interaction and you're conversing with people and all those self-doubts, and you're like, ooh, who am I, and why are they coming to me? I can't help them. Even if you try to, kind of fake the confidence, it will come out in subtle ways in the conversation's body language. And so we have to constantly be reminding ourselves, and also surrounding ourselves by people who help build us up. That's when I joined the mastermind program, building my business. I had all kinds of insecurities and all kinds of self-doubt, but I had people around me who, Chuck being one of them, who were like, you can do this, you can do this. And you're talented, you have the skills. And so it wasn't just, it's one thing to tell yourself, but it's super powerful to surround yourself. It doesn't have to be a lot of people, but at least having a friend, a mentor, or people that see bigger things in you, and they see things where you're doubting yourself, and that helps build up your confidence. So look for those communities, or look for those mentors, and catch yourself when you're recognize when you're having those insecurities, and realize, so I do a lot of journaling when I have those rough times, and, I'll sit down and kind of focus on, let's get out of that negativity and that insecurity, and let's focus on what do I do know, what do I bring to the table, and shift to that positive way. And I'll do journaling and call people up on the phone or Zoom meetings when you have that self-doubt. But that would be my advice that I would give.
I love it. I have a journal like that that's like this thick, I'm telling you. So I definitely do that. I journal a lot about things like that. That's really great advice. And another piece of advice that I really thought was very helpful, what you said, was we don't need to have all the answers, and we're not expected to have all the answers. We're not experts in every little thing. And I feel like a lot of times, I know I put this undue pressure on myself where I feel like I have to have all the answers before going into a conversation with a client. And that's really intimidating and completely unrealistic. And I don't know that the client would even expect me to have all the answers for any given project. And I feel like at sometimes they actually appreciate when you're authentic and you look to them for guidance on certain things, but you know where your strength is, and you bring that strength, and you're confident and rooted in that strength. And that is what I feel is really important. And you highlighted that. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, knowing those questions, because they've got definitely a knowledge and expertise, but you have to know how to pull that out, because they've got the knowledge you need as you move forward. So it's that interaction and the questioning and how to get that, say, oh, okay, that's where you are. That's what you need. Oh, you made me think of one other thing that it's actually been a more recent aha moment of kind of ISD is, I was thinking of ISD as designing the program. But I also see within the program and concepts and things, smaller versions of it where ISD is in place, because I teach people canine fitness and how to design canine fitness programs. But within that, I have a process in how do you evaluate a dog, what's the dog's weaknesses, and then design a fitness program for that individual dog. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like this, I have ISD like happening right there. And building a fitness program, it's like it's like a mini ISD project within the bigger project of the certification. And I just recently, over the last 6 months in my business mastermind program, I realized that I have this whole process of guiding them in their learning as a business owner. And there's phases, and it's cyclical, and there's knowledge and information and a process that I walk them through. And just recently, I kind of put a name to that. But I just realized as after I was invited to talk with you guys, as I was like, wow, actually I'm applying this kind of process to also those smaller things I'm doing within the bigger programs as I'm teaching them. So I'm kind of like seeing it everywhere now.
And that's perfect. And that's why we wanted you to be with us. So now we're going to have some fun. We have the half question segment of 3.5 questions. And Denise is going to spin the wheel. You can choose to answer or not answer. You can do as many as you want. You can do one or 10. So here we go. Here's the first one.
First question. Woo! Let me get my wheel in the right place. Ooh. Piano or guitar?
Oh my gosh. I've done lessons for both, but I stuck with the piano longer than the guitar.
Because?
I tell
That's
you,
what I thought.
Getting over the phase to develop the calluses on your fingers.
Yeah,
those calluses are so hard.
I mean, really
literally in.
Yeah, I started also the guitar later in life, and so I was already further along in the piano, But definitely doing it and sticking with it and getting those calluses and yeah.
Well, I'll forgive you because you're my friend. Do you want to do another?
Yeah, let's do another.
All right, let's do another. I took all this time to write these out in my beautiful handwriting, as you can see. I can't even read my own writing. All right, that's all right. Run or walk? Which do you prefer? Run. Oh yeah, you're a runner.
Jogger. How many miles do you do?
Well, we're in mud season right now. We had a lot of ice and then mud, and so I'm building my mileage back up. So yesterday I did about 3.5 miles. I want to get back up to doing 5 with my dog. My goal is to kind of get up to like 8 miles or maybe 10, but maybe 8 miles with my dog. But definitely due to weather, inclement weather, over the last few the last month, we've kind of gotten deconditioned. So we're just starting to build back up the mileage.
Well, you are a Mainer now. I mean, that's kind of what happens in Maine.
How many months out of the year can you run in Maine? Two?
Yeah, I was running. I got racing snowshoes. So I went jogging. Yeah, I went out jogging in my snowshoes. So I got racing snowshoes so I can still jog. And then I also get the yak tracks, the spikes on my shoes. I put them on my tennis shoes. And I was actually jogging, doing Candy Cross, where my dog was actually pulling me. Don't tell my mom. I was doing it on the ice.
I'm sure she won't see this.
Yeah,
Mum's the word.
I had my little spikes on my shoes, but I was like, here I am. I'm jogging on a trail, and my dog is pulling me.
Oh my God.
And we're on ice, and I'm like, this might not be the smartest thing to do, but I wasn't fighting, so I was like, we'll just keep going.
This is fun. Yeah. Okay. You want to do one more?
Wait, you actually run in snowshoes? I had a hard time walking in snowshoes. You
No,
run
she
in
does.
them.
It wasn't continuous, but racing snowshoes are more narrow. And I
Yeah.
got ones that have a spring on the heels, so as you're running, it kind of springs back and stuff. And they're more narrow, so you can move a little bit more naturally. But you're definitely slower, and you take little breaks. But yeah, I was doing a slow jog with the snowshoes on.
Well, that is awesome.
Okay, one more.
All right, one more.
Last one.
All right, ready?
It's the thing one.
It keeps wanting you to tell us about that.
There we go.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I take those little quizzes, and I'm both. Like sometimes I think I'm an extrovert, but then like here in Maine, I'm like, people stay away. Just let me go in the woods with my dog.
You're an introvert.
But I'm comfortable. I've got characteristics of both, but I don't have to be around people. I like, I like being out in the woods. I like, I don't like being in big cities, but I'm comfortable and I enjoy, like when I was teaching aerobic classes and I had a class of like 50, 60, 70 people, like I get a high. It's like, all right, everybody, let's go.
But then you would sleep for 2 days, right? That's what happens with introverts. Social situations wear them
It
out.
can be fatiguing, but
Yeah.
I enjoy and definitely I can get enjoyment in the groups in certain situations. Usually they're in situations where I'm in control.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but
If I'm in control and I'm running the show, then things are good. But I don't need that. Like my mom, she needs to maybe she'll disagree, but I think she needs a level of kind of connecting with her friends and having some of that. And I'm like, locked up with COVID. I'm like, yeah, this is great. I meet on Zoom with my
fine.
students. We go snowshoeing and we go running with our spikes and kayaking, and I've got a good day. I'm happy. So
that's wonderful.
Wow.
Erica, I can't thank you enough for being with us. It's been so
You're
much
welcome.
fun. And anything else you want to say to the ISDers out there?
No, just I'm very accessible if people ever have any questions or want to check out what I do or have questions, or they're like thinking about making a big leap and a change in their life direction and they're freaking out. Give me a shout out and and connect with me. And I love sharing my experiences and stories, and I love I do find it tends to help inspire others. So yeah, just if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out or learn more about anything we talked about, I'm definitely out there available on social media and email, and it's not hard to find me.
It was such a
so
pleasure.
much.
Yeah, such a pleasure speaking with you. I learned so much from this conversation. I'm really grateful that you were here with us.
Loved it, and thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you to everybody for tuning in and listening to this great conversation. We hope that you got as much enjoyment out of it as we did. Please hit the subscribe button and the little bell so you get notified when we have new episodes and when we go live. Stay safe and happy.